I trusted Mark with my deepest secret, the trauma that shaped my entire life. He not only exposed it to everyone but weaponized it, twisting my vulnerability into a monster that destroyed my career, family relationships, and reputation overnight. Standing on my 18th floor balcony, I made a decision. I would use my intimate knowledge of his life to create a mirror of destruction, reflecting back the pain he inflicted. They say revenge corrupts the soul, but I was already shattered into something cold and focused. The chandelier light shattered across the champagne glasses as Caroline placed her phone in my hands. My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen. Messages, screenshots, Mark's name at the top of each one. My secret splayed open like a corpse on an autopsy table. "He sent these to everyone, David," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the charity gala's ambient chatter. I looked up and saw it immediately. The stares, the whispers. Heads bent together in conversation that stopped when I glanced. Their way. My architecture firm's award celebration transformed into my public execution. The senior partner, Gregory, approached the microphone. I knew what was coming before the words left his mouth. "In light of recent information, we regret to announce that the partnership offer extended to David Wells has been withdrawn, effective immediately." The room blurred around me. I felt the weight of 300 eyes boring into my skin. I stumbled toward the exit, desperate for air. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Mark's hand. "Let me help you through this," he said, his voice dripping with concern. Looking back, I should have noticed it then. That flicker in his eyes. Satisfaction beneath the performance of sympathy. Mark wasn't just witnessing my destruction. He had orchestrated it. My best friend since childhood. Blood brother. The only person who knew about the trauma that shaped me. The secret I'd guarded for 20 years. The aftermath was swift and merciless. My phone buzzed constantly for 2 days, then went silent. Clients canceled contracts with vague explanations about company values. The Anderson project, my career-defining opportunity, disappeared overnight. I never saw it coming. Mark and I had survived everything together. Foster homes, college poverty, failed relationships. When I finally told him my secret 3 months ago, he had wept with me, sworn it would die with him. The third day after the gala, my sister called. "Mom and Dad think it's best if you don't come to the wedding," she said, voice flat. "People are talking, David." I didn't know what to say. That night I returned to my apartment to find the word "freak" spray-painted across my door, along with other slurs related to the distorted version of my trauma that Mark had spread. My life was unraveling thread by thread, and Mark called daily, offering hollow comfort. "People will forget eventually," he assured me over the phone, his voice carefully modulated with just the right amount of concern. I once believed those words were genuine. Looking back, I realize he was monitoring my deterioration, ensuring his plan was working. The final blow came a week later. An email from my parents forwarded from Mark, expressing deep concerns about my mental stability. They wouldn't be answering my calls for a while. They needed space to process. Mark had stolen everything. My career, my family, my dignity, my future. 3 weeks after the gala, I stood on my 18th floor balcony, staring down at the traffic below. Memories flooded back. Mark and I at 12, cutting our palms with his father's pocket knife, mixing blood, swearing eternal brotherhood. The night I finally revealed my trauma, both of us weeping on my couch, his arms around my shoulders as he promised, "Your secret dies with me." What a joke that promise had become. The edge of the balcony felt like the boundary between two worlds. One step, and the pain would end. One step. I remember thinking how the wind felt against my face. Clean. Final. That's when something shifted inside me. The shame and pain crystallized into something else, something cold and focused and absolutely clear. If Mark wanted to see me destroyed, I would show him true destruction, methodical, patient, complete. I stepped back from the edge, not from fear, but with purpose. I won't give you the satisfaction, I whispered to the night air. I didn't realize it then, but in that moment I transformed from victim to architect of retribution. That night I started a journal. Mark's daily routines, his habits, his vulnerabilities. I documented everything I knew about the man who'd been my brother for 15 years, all while presenting a broken facade to the outside world. When Mark called to check in, I played my part perfectly, the devastated friend. Between fake sobs, I extracted information. "How's work?" I'd ask, voice cracking. "Stressful. The Jensen account is killing me." He'd respond, unaware he was feeding me intelligence. "Is Jessica angry about the hours you're putting in?" I'd probe, recording his answer in my growing dossier. Two could play at gathering information. I didn't know then how deep my investigation would go, or how completely I would dismantle the life of the man who betrayed me. I was no longer David the victim. I was David the destroyer, and Mark's reflection was about to become his prison. I crafted a new identity. Quiet, reserved, recovering, the broken man Mark expected to see. I apologized to former colleagues, claiming therapy was helping. All an act. The perfect cover for my true work. I became a ghost in Mark's life. Coffee shops near his office, gyms during his workout hours, restaurants where he entertained clients, always at a distance, always watching. The intelligence I gathered was precise. Mark's passwords reused across accounts, his affairs hidden from Jessica, the cocaine habit masked as late-night workouts, the financial irregularities at his firm, inflated client invoices, mysterious cash withdrawals. I kept my journal meticulously, updated, every weakness, every vulnerability, every possible pressure point. "How are you holding up?" Mark would ask during our monthly drinks, his concern practiced and perfect. "Getting by," I'd reply, eyes downcast, the picture of a broken man. I didn't realize then how much I enjoyed these performances, how much power I felt gaining his trust while planning his destruction. The first real vulnerability emerged 3 months into my surveillance. Mark was sleeping with Jessica's sister Amanda. Not just a one-time mistake, a pattern. Hotel receipts, dinner charges, gift purchases, all hidden in plain sight through company expenses. I waited, gathered evidence, studied their patterns. When Mark mentioned an upcoming business trip to Chicago during our drinks, I verified through social media that Amanda would be there too, attending a conference. "How's Jessica?" I asked casually, swirling my whiskey. "Fine," he answered, distracted by his phone. "Looking forward to Chicago?" His eyes flicked up, momentarily alarmed before masking it. "Just business." I smiled. "Of course." Looking back, I should have seen the signs earlier. The narcissism, the casual cruelty, the way he maintained relationships only when they served his purposes. But friendship blinds us to the monsters wearing human faces. That night, I finalized my first move. The anonymous email to Jessica contained just enough evidence: hotel receipts, a carefully cropped photo of Mark entering a room, timestamps that matched Amanda's business trip. I added one sentence: "This isn't the first time." Then I waited. The call came at 2 a.m., Mark's voice raw with panic. "She knows, David. Jessica knows everything. She found other things once she started looking. She's throwing me out." I modulated, my voice to sound concerned, supportive. "I'm so sorry, Mark. Where are you now?" "In my car. She changed the locks already." I heard the pain in his voice and felt nothing. No, not nothing. Satisfaction. "Come to my place," I offered, knowing this would give me more intelligence, more ammunition. Mark spent 3 nights on my couch, unraveling further with each conversation. Between his drunken rants and unguarded phone calls, I learned about his cocaine habit, his gambling debts, his creative accounting at work. I recorded everything when he wasn't looking, each confession a nail in his future coffin. "I don't deserve this," he slurred on the 3rd night, whiskey sloshing in his glass. "I've always been good to her." I remember nodding sympathetically, while thinking about how he'd described my secret to others. The lies, the distortion, the deliberate destruction. With surgical precision, I moved to phase 2. An anonymous tip to HR about expense report irregularities. Cocaine strategically planted in his desk drawer before a company drug test. Email evidence of client overcharging accidentally forwarded to the board. I didn't know then how quickly his life would unravel. I thought it might take months. It took weeks. He called me from his car again, voice hollow. They fired me, drug test. Then they found the billing discrepancies. Jesus, Mark, what happened? Someone's trying to destroy me, he whispered, a truth he couldn't possibly understand. I'm here for you, I lied, watching his descent through the camera feed I'd installed in my living room when he stayed over. Within 2 months, Mark lost everything professional. His executive position, his industry contacts, his reputation. The divorce finalized with Jessica taking almost everything. The house, the cars, the savings. I watched it all from a careful distance, maintaining my role as the supportive friend, the broken man he'd helped through a crisis, the confidant he could trust. We met for drinks regularly. His appearance deteriorated with each meeting. Designer suits replaced by department store clothes. Confident smiles replaced by nervous glances. The alpha male reduced to a shadow. I don't understand why this is happening, he confessed one night, hands shaking around his whiskey glass. I nodded, savoring his confusion. The same disorientation I felt watching my life implode. Sometimes life just falls apart, I said, echoing the empty comfort he'd offered me months before. I felt myself growing stronger as Mark weakened. Each piece of his life I dismantled restored something in me. My focus narrowed, my purpose crystallized, my resolve hardened. I remember thinking it might be enough, that seeing him reduced and struggling might satisfy the cold rage inside me. I was wrong. The revenge I'd planned had only just begun. The real destruction would come from the truth, the same weapon he'd used against me. Mark had no idea that while he wept into his drinks, lamenting his bad luck, I was methodically preparing the final phase of his undoing, something that would make these setbacks seem like minor inconveniences. I was no longer the victim on the balcony contemplating the end. I had become something else entirely, something patient and precise and utterly without mercy. The moral dilemma surfaced unexpectedly. I saw Mark's teenage son, Tyler, at a coffee shop near his school. Red eyes, hunched shoulders, a kid bearing the weight of his father's destruction. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Was my vengeance harming innocence? Was I becoming the monster Mark had painted me to be? The hesitation lasted exactly 20 seconds. Until I remembered my sister's wedding, my parents' rejection. The word freak spray-painted across my door. My resolve strengthened. Collateral damage was inevitable. Just as Mark hadn't cared who else was hurt when he destroyed me, I focused on my next objective, finding the true motive behind Mark's betrayal. There had to be more than simple cruelty. Mark was calculating, not capricious. I didn't know it then, but I was about to discover the final piece of the puzzle. Using one of Mark's reused passwords, I accessed his cloud storage. Hundreds of files, financial records, tax documents, emails. I methodically scanned everything. Then I found it. A folder labeled JB Investments. Inside, bank statements, wire transfers, doctored accounting documents, nearly $500,000 embezzled from Jason Blake's startup. Jason, our mutual friend, Mark's college roommate. The timing told the whole story. The embezzlement had begun right before I shared my secret with Mark. The same week I mentioned potentially investing in Jason's company. My secret, if handled differently, might have inadvertently exposed Mark's crimes during the investment process. Mark hadn't just betrayed me. He'd sacrificed me to protect himself. Looking back, the pieces aligned perfectly. Mark's desperate need for money to cover gambling debts. His growing panic as Jason's company prepared for an audit. My innocent mention of joining the investor group. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the evidence, feeling a cold clarity wash over me. Mark didn't deserve mercy. He deserved exactly what I was about to deliver. I gathered the evidence carefully, made copies, created an untraceable email account, considered my options. Taking the information directly to the authorities was too simple, too quick. I wanted Mark to feel the slow unraveling the way I had. I wanted him to know it was me. I decided to approach Jason, positioning my discovery as something I'd stumbled across while trying to understand Mark's behavior toward me. We met at a quiet bar outside the city. Jason's face transformed as I showed him the evidence: confusion, disbelief, rage. $500,000, he whispered, hands shaking. The company almost went under last year. We had to lay people off, good people with families. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Jason was collateral damage in Mark's schemes, just as I had been. Why would you show me this? Jason asked. After everything you've been through? I calculated my response carefully. Because the truth matters. Because what he did to your company and your employees deserves consequences. Jason studied my face. This isn't just about my company, is it? No. His next words surprised me. How can I help? I didn't anticipate the alliance, but it fit perfectly into my evolving plan. Jason had resources, contacts, a legitimate grievance of his own. Over the next 6 months, we rebuilt our lives publicly while plotting Mark's final downfall privately. Jason helped me start a new architectural firm, sent clients my way, restored my professional reputation through his connections, all while gathering additional evidence against Mark. I maintained my supportive friendship with Mark, who now lived in a small apartment, working commission sales at a furniture store, still meeting for drinks, still recording his confessions. One night, drinking heavily, Mark finally admitted the truth. I had to do it, David, he slurred, unaware of the recording app on my phone. You were going to invest in Jason's company. You would have seen the books, asked questions. So you destroyed my life to save yourself, I said quietly. It wasn't personal, he mumbled, just survival. I let the rage simmer beneath a calm surface. I understand survival. I played the recording for Jason the next day, the final piece we needed. 1 year after the gala, my revenge entered its final phase. I invited Mark to my new penthouse under the pretense of potential investment in a business opportunity. Mark, desperate and nearly broke, eagerly accepted. You've really turned things around, he said, admiring the view from my balcony. I'm proud of you, man. Couldn't have done it without you, I replied, pouring him a drink. When the doorbell rang, Mark looked surprised. Expecting someone else? I smiled. Just a few colleagues interested in the same opportunity. The door opened, to reveal Jason and Jessica. Mark's face drained of color. What is this? He asked, already knowing. I connected my phone to the living room speakers. Mark's drunken confession filled the room. His admission of embezzlement. His calculated destruction of my life to cover his crimes. You took everything from me, I said calmly when the recording ended. So I showed you your true reflection. Mark lunged at me. Jason and the security guard I'd hired restrained him easily. You don't understand, Mark pleaded, looking between us. I was desperate. So was I replied. On that balcony, 18. Floors up. Jessica stepped forward, her face cold. The police have evidence of the financial fraud during our marriage, the accounts you hid, the taxes you evaded under my name. Jason nodded. And the DA has everything on the embezzlement. They're waiting for you downstairs. I handed Mark a glass of whiskey. Enjoy your last moments of freedom. I watched something break behind his eyes. The realization of complete ruin. In that moment, watching him crumble, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, emptiness. Had I become what he accused me of being? For a fleeting second, the possibility of mercy emerged. Mark sensed my momentary softening and sneered. You always were weak. My coldness returned instantly. I nodded to the security guard. Take him down. I watched from my window as police officers placed Mark in a cruiser. He looked up at my window one final time. I raised my glass in silent acknowledgement, then turned away without regret. I had become a stranger to myself, a man capable of methodical destruction. But standing there watching Mark's final fall, I recognized the truth. Some betrayals can never be forgiven. Some wounds never heal. Some reflections show us what we've become, not what we were. 3 months after Mark's arrest, I visited him, in prison. The once powerful man sat across from me, hollow-eyed, diminished in his orange jumpsuit. No designer suit, no expensive watch, no carefully styled hair. Why are you here? He asked, voice hoarse. I studied him through the scratched plexiglass. To see my handiwork. Mark leaned forward. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself, I replied. I just held up the mirror. The trial had been swift. Mark pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Hoping for leniency, the judge showed none. 8 years for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. His son refused to visit. His parents changed their phone number. Former colleagues pretended not to know him. I remember thinking how familiar that isolation must feel. The same alienation he'd engineered for me. I've lost everything, Mark said, eyes searching mine. Are you satisfied now? The question hung between us. Was I satisfied? The cold rage that had driven me for a year had burned out, leaving something else in its place. Not guilt, not regret, something more complex. This isn't satisfaction, Mark, I finally answered. It's just your reflection. I left without looking back, his voice calling my name as the heavy door locked behind me. Outside, spring had arrived. I walked across the prison parking lot feeling lighter than I had in months. Not healed, not whole, but free from the gravitational pull of revenge that had consumed my life. I didn't know it then, but that prison visit marked the beginning of my own reconstruction. Not forgiveness. Never that. But a release from the need to punish. My new firm thrived. Jason became a business partner. Our friendship strengthened through shared purpose. My sister cautiously reconnected, then my parents. The story Mark had spread faded as people found new gossip to consume. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs in Mark from the beginning. The casual cruelty masked as jokes. The subtle triangulation of relationships. The way he collected others' vulnerabilities while never sharing his own. 6 months after my prison visit, I received a letter from Mark. I nearly burned it unopened. Curiosity won. I think about that night at the gala every day, he wrote. What I did was unforgivable. I know that now. The man I was then deserved everything you did to him. I just wanted you to know that. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Not quite forgiveness, not quite closure, just another chapter in a story that was no longer defining my life. That summer, I met Claire at a gallery opening, an artist with quick wit and careful eyes. When she asked about my past, I told her everything, the betrayal, the revenge, the aftermath. She listened without judgment. We all have the capacity for darkness, she said afterward. Few have the honesty to acknowledge it. I remember how those words settled something inside me. The acknowledgement that my revenge hadn't made me a monster, just human, flawed, capable of both mercy and ruthlessness. 1 year to the day after Mark's arrest, I received a call from Jason. Mark's son is trying to reach you, he said. Tyler wants to talk. We met at a coffee shop near his school. 17 now, with his father's features but none of his calculated charm. I hated you for what happened to my dad, Tyler said bluntly, but then I found his journals. The things he wrote about what he did to you. How he planned it. I said nothing. Let him find his words. He wasn't who I thought he was, Tyler continued. And I needed you to know I understand why you did what you did. The conversation was brief, awkward, important. Not absolution, but recognition. The ripples of betrayal touching lives beyond my own or Mark's. I went home that night and boxed up my journals documenting Mark's destruction, not to destroy them, not to forget, but to acknowledge they no longer needed to occupy space on my desk, on my mind. 2 years after the gala that shattered my life, I received another letter from Mark. Thinner this time. Just a few lines. I dream about the balcony sometimes, he wrote. The one you stood on after I betrayed you. In my dreams, I'm the one looking down and you're watching from your window. Is that how it felt? Knowing I would fall? I never answered. Some questions don't deserve responses. Some betrayals leave permanent scars. Claire moved in that spring. Her paintings brightened walls that had witnessed my darkest planning. Her laughter replaced the silence where revenge had once germinated. I keep one reminder of Mark. A single champagne glass from the gala. I raise it sometimes on the anniversary of that night, not in celebration, not in regret, in acknowledgement of who I became in the aftermath. A man who discovered his capacity for calculated destruction. A man who learned there is no satisfaction in another's ruin, only reflection. A man who built something new from the ashes of betrayal. Mark will be eligible for parole in 4 years. I've already decided I won't object. His punishment isn't mine to control anymore. His life isn't mine to destroy. The mirror I held up served its purpose. Some betrayals change us forever. Mine transformed me from a man who trusted completely to one who understands the potential for cruelty in even the closest relationships. Not cynicism, just clarity. If Mark ever calls after his release, I might even answer. Not to reconnect, not to forgive, but to acknowledge the truth we both now understand. That when we shatter someone's life, we often cut ourselves on the broken pieces. That revenge satisfies nothing but justice balances scales. That some bonds once broken leave ghosts that haunt both the betrayed and the betrayer. I am David, the man whose deepest truth was weaponized against him. The architect who built both destruction and renewal from the same foundation. The reflection in the mirror I held up to my betrayer. I stand at my office window, watching the city shimmer in summer heat. 4 years since the gala. 4 years since Mark weaponized my deepest secret. 3 years since I engineered his destruction. His parole hearing approaches next month. My phone buzzes. Tyler's name appears on screen. Mark's son, now 20, studying engineering at State. We grab coffee occasionally. Not friendship exactly. Something more complicated. He wants to see you, Tyler says when I answer, before the hearing. I feel my jaw tighten. Why? Closure, I guess. He's different now. I laugh, short and sharp. Different how? Just different. Will you see him? I shouldn't. I know this. The chapter closed years ago. Claire would advise against reopening old wounds, but curiosity wins. When? I drive to the prison the following Tuesday. The familiar processing routine, metal detectors, ID checks, the smell of industrial cleaner masking deeper scents. Mark sits across from me, aged beyond his years. Prison has carved new lines around his eyes, thinned his once athletic frame. No orange jumpsuit today. Regular clothes for the man approaching potential freedom. Thank you for coming, he says, voice steadier than during my last visit. I say nothing. Wait for his purpose to reveal itself. I'm up for parole next month, he continues. Tyler says you won't object. Your punishment isn't mine to control anymore. Mark studies my face. You've changed. We all have. I didn't realize then how true those words were, how the aftermath of betrayal and revenge had reshaped us both. I found God in here, Mark says, or something like it. I raise an eyebrow, skepticism automatic. Not religion, just clarity about who I was, who I want to be. Convenient timing, I observe. Right before your parole hearing. He shakes his head. I don't expect you to believe me, or forgive me. I just needed to tell you something. Wait, silent. The secret I exposed, your secret, it was never shameful. Not to anyone but the monsters who hurt you as a child. My breath catches. The original wound exposed again. What I did was unforgivable, Mark continues. Using your childhood trauma against you, making people believe you were somehow damaged or dangerous because of what was done to you. I can't undo that. I find my voice. No, you can't. But I've spent 4 years telling my truth too. In group therapy, to other inmates, to Tyler. How I betrayed my best friend to hide my crimes. How I destroyed someone who trusted me because I was too much of a coward to face my own actions. Looking back, I should have anticipated this conversation. The inevitable collision of our evolving selves. The man who enacted revenge meeting the man who survived its consequences. What do you want from me, Mark? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You've given me exactly what I deserved. Something shifts in the air between us. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Something more elemental. Recognition. He slides a manila envelope across the table. My journals. From before the gala, during the planning, after your revenge. Tyler thought you should have them. Why would I want these? Because they're the final piece, the complete reflection. You held up the mirror. These are what was reflected back. I take the envelope, not sure why. Perhaps to burn it later. Perhaps to find some final understanding of the man who shattered my world. We sit in silence. Two men shaped by betrayal and its aftermath. Once brothers by choice. Now strangers connected by destruction. If I get parole, Mark says finally, I'm moving west. Starting over. I nod. Relief mixes with something unexpected, almost disappointment. The chapter truly ending. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, Mark. I leave without looking back, the weight of the envelope heavy in my hands. That night I tell Claire about the visit. She watches me with careful eyes as I describe Mark's transformation. Do you believe him? She asks. I'm not sure it matters, I answer. Whether it's genuine or not, we're both free now. I didn't open the journals for weeks. They sat in my office drawer, Schrodinger's confession, both read and unread until I made the choice. When I finally did, on a rainy Sunday while Claire visited her parents, the contents weren't what I expected. Not excuses, not pleas for understanding. Raw, unfiltered truth. Mark's progressive unraveling as his crimes mounted. His growing fear of exposure, the cold calculation that led him to sacrifice me, and then, after my revenge, something else. Genuine remorse. Layers of self-deception peeled away during therapy. Acceptance of his own monstrosity. The final entry, dated a month before our meeting. David showed me who I really was, not through words or accusations, but by reflecting my own tactics back at me. The mirror he held up revealed the truth I'd hidden even from myself. I destroyed him to save myself. He destroyed me to deliver justice. We're not the same, but we're connected by what we've done to each other. Forever. I closed the journal, sat in silence for a long time, then called Tyler. I read them, I said when he answered. And? Is he really different? A pause. Yes. Not perfect. Still Mark, but different. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Tell him I won't attend the hearing, but I wish him well. Mark received parole 3 weeks later, moved to Oregon as planned, sent a brief email thanking me for not opposing his release. I never replied. Life moved forward. Claire and I married in a small ceremony. Jason's company went public, making us both wealthy beyond expectation. My firm won awards for sustainable design. The architecture that had once been my salvation became my legacy. Sometimes I still think about that night on the balcony. 18 floors up, the moment of transformation. The choice to step back from the edge and become something colder. more focused. The architect of retribution. I keep the journals locked in my office safe. Not as a trophy, not as a reminder, as evidence that sometimes the most complete revenge isn't destruction, but transformation. Forcing your betrayer to truly see themselves, to live with the reflection you've shown them. 5 years after Mark's release, I received a package. Inside, a single champagne glass matching the one I kept from the gala. A note simply read, "The matched set, for when reflection becomes clarity." I placed it beside its twin. 2 glasses from the night that changed everything. One for the betrayed, one for the betrayer. Both forever altered by what had passed between us. This is the truth I learned through fire and glass. That some betrayals never heal completely. That revenge satisfies nothing but justice. That the most devastating weapon isn't exposure but reflection, showing your betrayer exactly who they are, making them live with the truth of themselves. I am David, the man who survived betrayal, the architect who built destruction from intimate knowledge, the mirror that forced a monster to face his reflection. 10 years have passed since the night Mark shattered my world. A decade since I stood on my balcony and transformed from victim to architect of retribution. My firm now occupies the top floor of a skyscraper I designed. Claire's art gallery thrives downtown. Our daughter Emma just turned 4. Life rebuilt from ashes isn't perfect, but it's mine. The email arrives on the anniversary of the gala. From Tyler, not Mark. Subject line, "You should know." "Dad's sick," it reads. "Terminal, 6 months, maybe less. He's asking for you." I stare at the screen for a long time, memories surfacing like bruises pressed beneath skin. The chandelier, light on champagne glasses, Caroline's whispered warning. The word freak spray-painted across my door. Claire finds me still staring an hour later. "Mark is dying," I tell her, "wants to see me." She sits beside me, hand on my shoulder. "Will you go?" I didn't know it then, but some circles demand completion. Some reflections require one final viewing. Oregon in autumn feels like another world. Golden light across mountains, air sharp with pine. Mark's cottage sits on 3 wooded acres outside Portland. Simple, modest. Nothing like the mansion he once shared with Jessica. Tyler greets me in the driveway. Taller now, married, expecting his first child. Life continuing its relentless forward motion. "He's having a good day," Tyler says, leading me inside. Lucid, not much pain. Mark sits in a wheelchair by the window. Gaunt, gray, cancer hollowing him from within. The man who once commanded rooms with his presence now barely fills the chair that holds him. "David," he says, voice surprisingly strong. "You came." I nod, taking the seat opposite him. Tyler said it was important. It is. Mark wheels himself to a desk, retrieving an envelope. My final confession. The envelope feels heavy in my hands. Not journals this time, legal documents. "What is this?" "Read it." I scan the pages. A sworn affidavit. Mark's complete admission of his crimes against me. His deliberate destruction of my reputation. His embezzlement from Jason. All of it documented in excruciating detail. Why now? I ask. Because the truth matters. Because some debts can never be fully repaid. Looking back, I should have anticipated this final act. Mark's attempt at atonement. Not for forgiveness, for completion. "I've filed this with the court," he continues. "Sent copies to everyone who matters. Everyone who believed the lies I spread about you." The implication sinks in. You're clearing my name, completely. Yes. Why? Mark looks out the window. Fall leaves drifting in golden light. Because it's the only thing left I can give you. I study the man before me. Once my brother in all but blood, then my destroyer, then my victim. Now something else entirely. A dying man seeking not redemption but resolution. The cancer, I begin. Pancreatic, aggressive, no chance of remission. I nod. I'm sorry. Don't be. Poetic justice, some might say. We sit in silence, the weight of our shared history filling the space between us. Not quite peace, not quite closure, something more complicated. I kept your journals, I tell him finally. Read them many times. And? You were right. We're connected by what we've done to each other. Forever. Mark nods, something like relief crossing his gaunt features. That's why I needed to see you. To acknowledge the connection, the reflection, one last time. I find myself telling him about my life. My firm, Claire, Emma, the future taking shape despite the past that nearly destroyed it. Not to hurt him with what he's lost, to confirm that his destruction failed to define me. You survived me, Mark says simply. Yes. Good. When I leave 2 hours later, we shake hands, not friends, not enemies. Two men who have seen each other at their absolute worst and survived the reflection. I didn't realize then that I would never see Mark alive again. He died 4 months later, Tyler at his bedside. The affidavit became public record. Old colleagues called. My parents finally asked for the complete truth. The story Mark had, crafted unraveled entirely. At Mark's request, I received a small wooden box after the funeral. Inside, a single champagne glass. Not the matching one he'd sent years before. A third glass, cracked but mended with gold lacquer. The note read simply, "The broken one, transformed but never the same." I placed it beside the others. 3 glasses from the night that changed everything. One for the betrayed, one for the betrayer, one for what both became afterward. 5 years after Mark's death, Tyler's son turned 5. The invitation to the birthday party arrived unexpected but welcome. Claire encouraged me to go. To complete the circle, the backyard filled with children's laughter, streamers and balloons, ordinary joy that once seemed impossible in the shadow of what Mark and I had done to each other. Tyler handed me a beer, nodding toward his son. He has his grandfather's eyes. But not his nature, I hope, I replied, the words escaping before I could stop them. Tyler laughed, surprising me. No, Mark made sure of that, told me everything, made me promise to be better. And are you? Every day. Looking across the yard at the children playing, at the future unfolding untainted by past sins, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly. Something more fundamental. Release. That night, I took the 3 champagne glasses from my office, set them on the balcony table 18 floors above the city, filled each with champagne, raised the first one, my original glass from the gala. To survival, I whispered. The second glass, Mark's matching one. To justice. The third, glass cracked but mended with gold. To transformation. I didn't drink from any of them. Instead, I poured all 3 over the balcony rail, watching the champagne catch moonlight as it fell. Then I placed the empty glasses in a box and stored them away. Not forgotten, just no longer needed on display. This is the truth I learned, through betrayal and revenge. That some wounds never heal completely. That justice isn't found in another's destruction, but in your own rebuilding. That the most perfect revenge isn't making someone suffer, but making them see themselves clearly, without deception or denial. I am David, the man whose deepest secret was weaponized against him. The architect who built both destruction and renewal. The mirror that forced a monster to face his reflection until, at last, he recognized the truth. The man who learned that when we hold up mirrors to our betrayers, we must be prepared to glimpse our own reflection in the glass.